Okay, so we're looking at Sefer Ha-Aggadah. It's still on page 143. It's volume 1, 10-2. This one is about, this entry is about Rabbi ben-zakkay, who was the leader of the Jews in Jerusalem, and the way he sort of brokered peace with the Romans. The Midrash says that when Vespasian, the emperor, or it's called Aspasianus in our sources. So when Vespasian besieged Jerusalem, there were three very rich people: Nakdimon ben Gurion, ben Kalbasavo, ben Tzitzit Keset, and those three were able to provide for the whole city wheat, barley, wine, salt, oil, and firewood for 21 years. So they could have withstand siege for many, many years. But the Biryonim, or what they call the Sikari in Latin means dagger. So those were the zealots who said, we're going to fight to the last drop of blood. They were very ferocious, but not only they were fighting with the Romans, they said anyone who thinks that we could arrive at a certain agreement with the Romans, we're going to kill him. We don't accept that. So in order to make people in the city desperate, to make sure that they fight, they set fire to all these granaries with wheat and barley and oil. They spilled the oil. They destroyed everything. They said, no, that's it. We're on a suicidal mission. Either you survive or you die, but there's no in between. Rabbi ben-zakkay realized that they're not going to win. Yeah, they are going to all die, because the Roman Empire, I mentioned this before, the Roman Empire could not afford to lose even one city, because it was all part of the system of the Roman Empire that was paying tax and tribute to Rome to sustain its lifestyle. The Romans poured all their armies to Israel at the time. So Rabbi ben-zakkay sent a message to his nephew, whose name was Abba Sikara ben Batiyah. Abba Sikara is from the word Sikari, a dagger. So he's the master of the dagger bearers. And Batiyah, you know what Batiyah is in Arabic? Watermelon. So they said that they called him like that because he was a large man with big fists. His fists were the size of a watermelon. It's quite one tradition. So he's an intimidating man. שלח לו רבן יוחנן בן-זכאי, בוא אצלי בצנעה. בא. אמר לו רבי יוחנן בן-זכאי, עד מתי אתם עושים כך וממיתים את כל העולם ברעב? אמר לו, מה אעשה אם אומר להם דבר יהרגוני? So Rabban Yohanan told his nephew, what are you doing? You're going to kill everyone by hunger. Meaning he cannot reason with him to say that the war is futile or there's no point to the war. He tells him, I support your idea of waging war, but now that you've destroyed all the food, people are going to die in hunger before they are able to win the war against the Romans. His nephew says, I can't say anything. My people are going to kill me. So this is the idea of that sometimes a leader loses control over his people. They're already all in the thick of battle. They see blood. They're hyped about this idea of defeating the Romans. You can't reason with them anymore. Even their leader, this intimidating man, Abba Sikara, he cannot talk to them. They're already in the mode of war. אמר לו רבי יוחנן, ראה לי תקנה שיצא מכאן, אפשר שתהיה הצלה מועדת. Try to find a way for me to smuggle me out of the city. Maybe I can bring some salvation, to save something of our city. אמר לו אבא סיקרא, עשינו בינינו שלא יצא אדם מכאן, אלא אם כן הוא מת. The only way for you to leave the city is if you're dead. So he's not threatening him, but he says this is very dangerous. The only way you could get out of the city is in a casket to be buried. And you're not dead. Amar Rabbi Yohanan, Otzieni b'dmut met. Okay, so let me pretend that I died, and then take me out. So his nephew said, okay, עשה עצמך חולה ויבוא הכל לבקרך, ועבד דבר של סירחון והנח אצלך, ויאמרים מת רבי יוחנן. He says, first you have to spread the rumor that you're sick, and have people come and visit. It will take a while. And this is really covered operation. He planned it out. He says, make sure that everybody knows that you're sick, then bring something that with the strong smell to spread stench in your house, and then people will say that you died, and then you should be carried out of town. It says, but let your disciples carry you. They have to know that they have to know the secret, because if other people carry the casket, they will realize that the dead is not as heavy as it's supposed to be. Right? עשה רבי יוחנן כך, שלח וקרא לתלמידיו רבי אליעזר ורבי יהושע, so he had two of his students, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yoshua, to carry him. So obviously, the aron, the casket that they had back then, is not what we have today. It was more like a gurney. So otherwise, you can't carry such a heavy load with two people. And they were walking with him until sunset. So maybe they went around the city, pretending that they're doing eulogies, but they scheduled it to get to the wall, to the exit, at around sunset, for two reasons. One is that it's already dark, so it's hard to see what's happening. It's they didn't have lights the way we have today. Second, that sunset is usually one of the times for the shifts when the guards change, so it's already a little bit in a state of confusion, and they thought they would be able to sneak through. אמרו להם השוערים, מי הוא זה? אמרו להם מתו, וכן אתם יודעים שאין מלינים את המת בירושלים? So they said it's a dead person. It's Rabbi ben-zakkay, and he died. Don't you know that we are not allowed to leave a dead body in Yerushalayim? We have to bury the person at the same day. ביקשו הבריונים לדקור בגופו של המת. So they said, okay, let us see if he's really dead. Let us push a dagger through the body. אמר להם אבא סיקרא, יאמרו רבם דקרו. Says if you do that, that's the head of the zealots, the head of this mafia, talking to them. He says you cannot do that because people will say that you have stabbed your master, the rabbi. It's shameful. ביקשו לדחפו, אמר להם יאמרו רבם דחפו. So they said, okay, let us just shake the bed, see if he responds, physically. He said, this is also shameful. Yomru rabam dahaf. What do people say? Which is interesting to show you that even those people who became completely lawless have certain respect to the master, to Rabbi Yochanan ben-zakkay. I don't know if you remember, many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the car of Haim Ovadia was stolen. He had a very expensive vehicle donated by someone, I think, from Mexico. It's maybe it was even armored, Mercedes, $300,000, something like that. And as all vehicles in Israel, it's susceptible to be stolen by Arabs. It happened to my car. And it doesn't survive for long. When I called the police 3 hours after my car was stolen, they said too late. It's probably already slaughtered and sold as spare parts in Kalkilia. But with Haim Yosef, they called right away. Of course, they noticed the car was stolen. They called the police called the Palestinian Authority. Within 1 hour, the car was back, out of respect for the rabbi. So even in Mahshamah, they have this kind of respect. In this case, it's not. We are talking about Jewish freedom fighters, but they had respect for the rabbi. But here, it's also symbolic. It's not just the story as it is, which probably didn't happen from what we know from historical sources. This exact story of Rabbi Yochanan ben-zakkay being smuggled out of the city didn't happen. It's more a symbolic story. It comes to send a message, and the message is that Rabbi Yochanan already foresaw the result of the war. He knew it's not going to be successful. He tried to save something for the Jewish people, and the Biryonim, the zealots, are willing to stab him, to push him, meaning they lost all respect. They lost all respect to authority, whether political, like Abba Sikara, the head of the zealots, or religious in the form of Rabbi Haim ben-zakkay. So in any case, they bring him to Vespasian. They went, his disciples, all the way to Vespasian, who was at the time was the general of the Roman army. פתחו אהרון ועמד לפניו, אמר לו, שלום עליך המלך, שלום עליך המלך. And meaning originally it's the Kiri, he calls him Kiri, which is emperor. He says, I greet the emperor. So Vespasian answered, you deserve to be executed twice. Once for calling me emperor, which is treason, high treason. I'm not the emperor. And second, if I'm the emperor, you should have come and see me before that. So Rabbi Yochanan answered, he said that you are the emperor, otherwise Yerushalayim would not have been given to you, because it's obvious that you're going to destroy Yerushalayim. And the Yerushalayim is of that status that only an emperor can destroy it. And he quotes a pasuk, "Va'levanon be'adir yipol," the forest of Lebanon, which is a metaphor for the temple, will be destroyed by a mighty person, which is a king. And he says the other, and the reason why I didn't come to you so far is that the zealots didn't let me. אמר לו אספסיאנוס, אילו חבית של דבש ודרקון כרוך עליה, לא היו שוברים את החבית בשביל הדרקון? Says, what if you have a barrel of honey and a serpent is coiled around it? You would have to, in order to kill the serpent, you would have to break the barrel. The barrel is made, their barrels were made of clay. So you have to take a club and smash the head of the serpent, and with that you're going to destroy the barrel of honey. What is he telling you? They're speaking in riddles. He says that Jerusalem is what Rabbi Yochanan ben-zakkay was saying. He was saying not all of us want to fight. Those are the zealots who are waging war against you, and they dragged all the people of Yerushalayim into the war. But we're trying to make peace. So the emperor answered that now you're all entangled. It's all one thing. The zealots are part. They are the dragon. They are the serpent that is coiled around Yerushalayim. I have to kill them, and in the process, innocent people will die. There's nothing I can do. And Rabbi Yochanan did not answer. Shatak Rabbi Yochanan. Later on, some rabbis said that what happened to Rabbi Yochanan at that moment was like momentary ignorance, and that God prevented him from knowing the right answer. היה צריך לומר לו, נוטלים צבת ומסלקים את הדרקון והורגים אותו ואת החבית מניחים. He should have answered, you bring vice and you hold the serpent and you remove it, and then you let the barrel remain whole. Which means, what he should have told him, come talk to me, we should try to find ways to get only to the leaders of the rebellion and get rid of them, or whatever way possible, and let Yerushalayim survive. But he didn't think of that. Maybe, the later rabbi said that he failed to understand the situation, that God prevented him from knowing what to say. But we could also say that he really couldn't say that, because once the mentality of the zealots took over Yerushalayim, you could not really separate to tell who's who. How are you going to go into Jerusalem and separate them? There was no one to talk to. But while they were talking, the Midrash goes on to say how the counselors of Vespasian all chimed in. Everyone says his own idea of what has to be done. It's interesting. They are of the provinces of Arabia, Africa, Alexandria, and Palestina. That was the name that the Romans gave Israel, part of Israel. Palestina, nothing to do with the Palestinians. They named it after the Philistines who lived there, and the Philistines were Greeks, or from the Greek islands who invaded Israel. That's why they're called Pelishtim, because in Hebrew the word Polesh means invader. So yeah, maybe we should have, if the Palestinians of today want to adopt that name, which is completely historically incorrect, because for 2,000 years there were no one there called Palestinians, they should call themselves maybe invaders. That would be because 90% of people who live now in what is called the territories are not originally from Israel. So, but it's just a side issue. And I'm not saying it as myself. A couple of maybe last year or 2 years ago during the Tzuketan, what's called protective edge in the summer, a speaker from Gaza was on Al Jazeera, right? And he called on his brethren to come and join the fight. And he said, how is it possible that you're not helping us? You know that 90% of us are from Kuwait, from Egypt, from Iraq, and he calls the name, Al-Masri, Al-Baghdadi, all these names, Al-Kuwaiti. So they admit that also.
Arafat was born in Egypt.
Yeah. So anyway, through this, as they were talking, בא שליח מרומי ואמר לאספסיאנוס עמוד שמת הקיסר ונמנו גדולי רומי להושיבך בראש. So a messenger came and told the emperor, rise, because now you have been appointed emperor, which is true but very common at those who know the history of the Roman Empire. It was very common for one of the leading generals to become emperor because he had the support of the army. A military coup was a very common thing. Actually, the year just before 2 years before the destruction of the temple, the year 67 of the Common Era is known in history as the year of the 4 emperors, because 4 emperors succeeded each other within 1 year. Nero, Caligula, and
Caesar?
Not Caesar, no, not there. And then Vespasian. So it was very tumultuous. One could be one moment a general, the next thing he knows he's the emperor. היה אספסיאנוס נעול נעל אחד, בא לנעול את השנייה, ולא נכנסה רגלו. בא לחלוץ את הראשונה ולא יצא רגלו. Here we have an interesting incident. He's already wearing one shoe, and he's about to wear the other shoe, and he can't wear it. And so he tried to take off the first one, couldn't take it off. He doesn't know what's going on. Rabbi Yohanan tells him that what happened now is that because you heard such good news, you gained some weight, or you've expanded, so you've inflated. So what you have to do is, how could you fix it? He says, let them bring someone you really don't like, and just see him. You'll feel depressed again, and literally depressed, and you could do that. And then the emperor told Rabbi Yohanan ben-Zakkay, you're so wise, why didn't you come beforehand? And he said, I told you why I couldn't come. So this whole story is a little strange. You know why it's strange? Because Roman emperors or soldiers did not wear shoes. They wore sandals. You could fit your foot in a sandal, even if it's a little bigger. You could always stretch the straps a little bit. I think it's the story has no base in reality. It doesn't make it not a good story. It's a great story, but it didn't happen that way. It's a message. It's an allegory. What is the story here? After Rabbi Yohanan ben-Zakkay told the emperor to do that, he says, wow, you're so wise, you should have come earlier. Well, you're so impressed by the fact that the rabbi told him to bring someone that he doesn't like. So what is going on here? So I think the message is this. Even after this whole discussion, and even after Vespasian sees that Rabbi Yohanan ben-Zakkay was correct in his prediction, he says, I don't feel comfortable trusting you, making peace with you, or giving you whatever you want, because the emperor tells Rabbi Yohanan, how do I know that you're not an infiltrator? How do I know that you're not a traitor or a representative of those who are fighting against me? Right? And Rabban Yohanan ben-Zakkay says, the truth is, you can never tell. You can never tell if someone is with you or against you, What you could really do is rely on your hunches. Right? In most cases, you could really analyze and ask a question, but at the end of the day, it will be your hunch that you'll have to rely on, your gut feeling, or what people call the blink instance. If you're really an expert with people, you'll know within the first 10 seconds who the person is. If you're an expert on tennis, you'll know within, naturally this guy is a great player. This is a book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell where he describes that. So Rabbi ben-zakkay says, here, look, you felt good automatically, you were unconsciously or subconsciously, your body expanded. You see someone that you don't like, automatically, you lose that feeling. How do you feel with me? Do you feel uncomfortable or comfortable? This is like the subliminal message that Rabbi ben-zakkay sends the emperor, right?
It's also called body language.
Body language, and that's maybe the symbolism of, how we still say it, and we say in English, right? If the boot fits, right? Cinderella, the glove, right? So it's a kind of compatibility. Rabbi ben-zakkay says, okay, do you think we're compatible or not? He says, you're very wise. He should have come earlier. He says, I couldn't because of, like I told you. So he says, what do you want? He says, Vespasian says, I have to leave, go back to Rome as the emperor, but now whatever you ask, I'm going to give you. Rabbi ben-zakkay could have asked for him to spare Jerusalem, and some rabbis rebuke him for that. Again, they say God prevented him from seeing the light. Others say no. He knew that this is too much to ask. He wanted to ask something which is reasonable. So he says, Ten li Yavneh v'chachameh. Let me have the city of Yavneh and the scholars to establish a yeshiva. It is again not historically correct, but the message that the rabbis wanted to tell through the story is that when you look back in retrospect and at this whole war, and you say, and you try to figure out what succeeded and what failed, you see that the military campaign at that point failed. What succeeded was that Rabbi ben-zakkay continued the chain of tradition by teaching and qualifying masses for the next generation, preserving the Jewish tradition. And 2,000 years later, the Roman Empire is gone, but the Jewish faith and tradition is still there. So many layers to every story in Haggadah. We read, Baruch Adonai, La'olam Amen V'Amen.